They say that lies are just words, but that is not true. A lie is architecture. Some people build small shacks of deceit, hiding a receipt or a text message, but others build entire skyscrapers. My husband, Mark, was an architect of illusions. For 7 years, I lived inside a penthouse of lies he built just for me, never realizing that the foundation was made of smoke and the walls were made of silence. My name is Elena, and if you are listening to this, checking your partner's phone while they sleep, wondering if that nagging feeling in your gut is real, stop. It is real. I ignored mine, and it cost me everything. My life was perfect, Instagram perfect. Mark was a brilliant investment banker on Wall Street. I was an interior designer. We lived in Manhattan, dined in Paris, and vacationed in Tulum. He used to look at me with those intense blue eyes and say, "Elena, you are my North Star. Without you, I'm lost." It was a beautiful line. I didn't know he had rehearsed it in front of a mirror 1,000 times. The collapse began on a Tuesday. Mark was scheduled to fly to Zurich for a global finance conference. He kissed me goodbye at the door, his expensive cologne lingering in the air. "See you Friday, babe. I'll bring you that Swiss chocolate you love." I watched his taxi drive away. I didn't know I was watching a ghost disappear. Friday came. Mark didn't return. His phone went straight to voicemail. By Saturday, panic set in. By Sunday, I was hyperventilating in a police station filing a missing persons report. But on Monday, I decided to go to his office, the prestigious financial tower in the financial district where I had sent him lunch 100 times. I walked up to the reception desk, my hands trembling. "I'm looking for Mark Sterling. He works on the 42nd floor. He's missing." The receptionist typed his name into the system. She frowned. She typed it again. Then she looked at me with a mix of pity and confusion that I will never forget. "Ma'am," she said softly, "we don't have an employee named Mark Sterling. We never have. The 42nd floor is a storage archive. Nobody works there." The world tilted on its axis. "That's impossible," I laughed, a hysterical broken sound. "He's a senior VP. I've met his colleagues. David, where is David?" She shook her head. Security escorted me out. I stood on the sidewalk in the pouring rain, calling David. The number was disconnected. It was a burner phone. The avalanche started then. I ran to our bank. "I need to check our joint savings," I told the teller. "The account was closed 3 months ago," he said emotionlessly. $400,000 was withdrawn in cash. I drove home, only to find an eviction notice taped to our door. The deed to the penthouse? Fake. We were renters, and Mark hadn't paid in 6 months. My husband wasn't missing. He never existed. I had been married to a character, a role played by a sociopath. I tore the apartment apart. I found his work briefcase hidden in the back of a closet behind his golf clubs. I smashed the lock with a hammer. Inside there were no financial reports. There was a laptop and a stack of black notebooks. I opened one. It was a script, literally. He had written down scenarios. "If Elena asks about the bonus, tell her the market is volatile. If she mentions her mother, cry. Tears build trust." I felt sick. I vomited right there on the floor. I wasn't his wife. I was an audience member in a one-man show. But then I found the final page. A new entry. Project, Miami. Target, Victoria. Real estate heiress. Potential value, $2 million. He hadn't just left me. He had finished his performance and moved on to the next season. He was in Miami right now, reciting lines to a new victim. He thought he was a genius. But he forgot one thing. I am a designer. I noticed details. Before he left, I had slipped an AirTag into the lining of his favorite watch case, just in case it got stolen. I pulled out my phone. The dot was blinking. Miami Beach. The Grand Hotel. I wiped my tears. I didn't call the police. They would just arrest him for fraud and he'd be out in 2 years to con someone else. No. I needed to cancel his show, permanently. I flew to Miami. I used the last limit on my credit card to buy a stunning red dress. I walked into the Grand Hotel ballroom. A sign welcomed guests to the engagement party of Alex and Victoria. Alex. That was his new name. I stood in the shadows, and there he was, my Mark, my husband, holding the hand of a young, beautiful blonde woman. He raised a glass of champagne. "To Victoria," he said, his voice cracking with fake emotion. "You are my North Star." The rage that filled me was cold and sharp. I walked into the light. I walked straight onto the stage. The music stopped. Hundreds of people turned to look at the woman in red. Mark turned. The color drained from his face. It was the first honest emotion I had ever seen him express. Terror. "Who are you?" Victoria asked, confused. I smiled. "Me? I'm just a fan of his work. Alex, or Mark, is such a talented actor." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the massive projector screen behind them via Bluetooth casting. "Let's watch his highlight reel." Photos flooded the screen. Our wedding, his fake IDs, the scripts from his notebook, and finally, the page about Victoria. Target, heiress, 6-month timeline. The room went dead silent. Victoria pulled her hand away from him as if he were burning her. "What is this?" she whispered. Mark lunged at me. "She's crazy. She's a stalker." But Victoria's father, a man who actually built skyscrapers, stepped in. He punched Mark so hard I heard his jaw crack. Mark fell to the floor, bleeding, looking up at me with wild eyes. I stood over him, looking down like a director disappointed in a bad audition. "You know, honey," I whispered into the microphone, "I don't think that scene was in the script. Mark is in federal prison now. It turns out I wasn't the first, and Victoria wasn't the last. He had 5 lives running simultaneously. I lost my money. I lost my home. But I found the truth. Now I work as a private investigator. I help women fact-check their fairy tales. Because if a man seems too perfect, if he says all the right lines, check his script. He might just be playing a role. And you don't want to be left paying for the ticket when the curtain falls.